here because of our close proximity to the Gulf Stream, so it became a mecca for that. And what I learned over time was I had just as much passion for the boats as I did the fishing.
The local boat building community here in the Outer Banks is sort of an amazing little pocket of talent and history and necessity.
I had a need just like the early pioneers. I needed a new boat, and I figured, well, I'll just build it myself.
Being a yard dog is, anyone who's worked in a boatyard can appreciate that term. Being a carpenter or a craftsman or a tradesman in the marine industry it's dirty, hard work.
Working with wood is what we all have in common here. It doesn't always go well. Making wood go around these shapes like this, sometimes you break boards and sometimes there's, cussing involved, and it certainly would be no fun if I didn't get to work with my friends every day.
We're probably the largest area in the world for building sport boats right here in Dare County. We certainly stand on the shoulders of our predecessors. If it weren't for the guys that built the $25,000 boats in the 70s that learned how to put flare in a boat and learn this stuff, I don't think we'd be there today without them.
The tradition used to be in the fishing season or the summertime, people would fish and take people fishing. In the wintertime, those mates and captains would build boats.
There's some amazing craftsmen and builders here, fishermen that have been boat builders. It was a necessity for them to build their boats. They were building the boats they were fishing on. And it's really developed over the generations into what it is today.
Now it's a bit more of a booming, world-renowned boat building place. And I would say the credit for that goes to Buddy Davis. I mean, you can go to Puerto Rico, you can go to Italy, you can go to the Azores. Everybody knows of Buddy Davis.
The history of Dare County boat building, for the most part, has been passed down orally from generation to generation with young guys that come into the boat shops. Some of them coming from fishing or commercial fishing into the boat building industry, some of them with carpentry experience, some from other areas. And it's all this passed down information.
I apprenticed with a guy named Robin Smith down here. Started working with him for at least 5 or 6, maybe 7 years before I went out on my own. And become friends with a naval architect who actually designed the first boat that I was involved with building, which was a Robin Smith 65. That guy's name was Peanut, or Glenn Hall.
Well, the Carolina Flyer itself helps us to run through some really choppy seas. And the modified V hulls, we have a long ways to go, 40 miles, sometimes longer than that. So it was a need for the boat to ride well. We have a unique style, and that's what has propelled this boat.
Boat building, historically, has evolved. Over the generations, what was a local boat building industry has become an international boat building center here, and the level of quality and craftsmanship has increased, to keep up with the pace of the international demand.
I strive to resemble Warren O'Neill and Omi Tillett's boats more than other ones, just because I think that their traditional lines are more in keeping with this area, and they're purposely designed for our rough inlet.
It really is exciting to see one of these boats finished and then look at it and say, what could I do to make it just a little bit better? So that's really exciting to be part of that process. And I really think here on the Outer Banks, well, I know we are. We've been trendsetters for around the world. Back in the 70s, our need wasn't nothing like it is now. If you had a boat that would go 20 knots, it was considered a fast boat. And if you had an air conditioner, you were top of the line. Well, that's evolved to something quite different now, where We have boats that are cruising at 40 knots.
You know, the end process of these vessels, it's a culmination of a lot of creative energy coming together, you know, from the owners to the builders to the designers.
You know, it wasn't that long ago I helped my father-in-law, who was a boat builder, and we cut frames out of juniper and plank on frame construction. Now that's involved to composite carbon fibers and different resins to make the boats lighter, stronger, faster.
People ask me why I don't use foam or Divinysil or these other materials that other builders are using, and it's simply because I like to run my tools through Spanish cedar and juniper. It's a tactile thing.
We embrace modern technologies and materials and, you know, utilizing new tools, computers and automation, CNC work, plotter cutters, things of that nature. It's getting harder and harder to get really good wood, so they're turning to alternatives and alternative methods for the finishes on the exterior of the boats, and that's where we have to, you know, problem solve our way through and figure out how to come up with a solution for something that's sort of in front of us at any given time, and it's always moving forward.
The coolest part of all of it is the lofting part. Up on that mezzanine, those jigs are the form that the boat gets built around. Lofting is a process of taking different views of the boat and combining the measurements of them and then making that in a full scale and then giving birth to a three-dimensional object.
It's a challenge to make the boat look right, sit right, perform right, but that's done over time. You know, there's something besides just the look of a boat that is really important. Every builder has his own little twist or style.
At the end of our process, you know, we put our names on the back of these boats, but the back of the boat is really kind of the front of the boat. When you're walking down the dock, the first thing you typically see is the back of the boat. So when you see the name, it's kind of like seeing the face of the boat. So it says a lot for the whole vessel, sort of the introduction to the boat.
When you build the interior of one of these boats out, it's different than a home or a house. Things aren't square and straight. And we're fortunate that we have some incredible craftsmen, and they get to use some of the finest and rarest woods and materials from around the world.
You know, family heirloom is what I like to think that I'm producing. It really makes me want to build something that is going to last, try to overbuild them and try to make them as durable as possible, knowing that most of my people want to keep that boat and give it to their kids when the time comes. Sometimes with this kind of thing, you feel initially like you're in over your head, but, you know, that's the way all challenges are.
You know, we've got to work with some incredible educated people, naval architects from around the world. I don't know if I would trade all that for the practical experience we've learned over the last 40 or 50 years.
I've got a deck built above the tree line where I can sit up there and watch all of these boats running by in the channel, and I can sit there with my family or whoever's with me and identify the builders of each boats.
The Outer Banks influences me as far as my state of calmness, I suppose, and my peace of mind in my workplace. I get inspiration from all over the place, from nature. It comes from everywhere.
It's not a sideline job, it's a real industry, and it's a lifetime job for a lot of our people.
Everybody, even with the competition, it's a family of people here. It's a small community of boat builders.
For the rest of my life, I want to take more boat rides, and the ultimate boat ride is going to be the longest one, and it's going to be maybe not around the world, but a long, long boat ride.
In a world of ordinary vacations, live the extraordinary. the real Outer Banks.
The water is what brought us here. It's our way of life, our playground. The water is what keeps us coming back. Find your calm at visitcurrituck.com.
Photography in my youth, it wasn't overly accessible to everybody. Now we all have cameras. We carry them in our hip pockets.
I feel like when I go to pick up a camera, I'm documenting a moment that can't be recreated.
What I like to do is to slow down and to think through, what is it about this minute, this scene, that I want to carry forward in my memory? I'm honing in on the very part of the scene that I want to preserve. And when I choose then to process and print that photograph, hang it on my wall, it brings me right back to that moment.
I remember in January of 2017, looking at my dwindling bank account, and I said, I'm either gonna have to find another corporate job, or I have enough money I could just figure out a way to survive. And I literally just that day said, I'm moving to the Outer Banks.
What motivates me to go out and shoot every day is this quote from Hans Christian Andersen: "The whole world is a series of miracles, but we're so used to them, we call them ordinary things."
People have been coming here for 20, 30 years, and they've never seen the sky. And they had no idea this was right there in their backyard.
I think a lot about the Eden story, metaphorically, for what could have been, not what is, where humans were in harmony with the natural world. And so when I come out into the field with my lens, what I'm looking for are glimpses of the Eden that might have been.
Photography, it all started for me back in late 90s. I was going and buying disposable cameras at Connor Supermarket and just going around and shooting photos of my friends.
My brother, James, gave me my first camera, little Fuji X100. I just started with that, and then it evolved. It like snowballed fairly quickly into just using that camera a lot, but like obsessively shooting everything around me, just daily life and all the people. I was sticking a camera in their face.
Well, what's weird is I've always wanted to be a photographer, but I never owned a camera. So I started tent camping in Rodanthe, and I started kiteboarding and just going back and forth. And all of a sudden, it was in August that year, I was watching a storm go by, and I was just using my cell phone, and it clicked that I was like, you know, I'm never bored when I'm taking photos. I always love it. I'm gonna buy a camera.
My late husband, Pete, used to ask me, he said, well, what if you go and you don't get anything? And I used to say, well, honey, there's 100% chance of no photograph if I don't go.
Now I spend a lot of my time just every day documenting life on the Outer Banks, like what it's actually like to live here. And it's just become just an obsessive passion of mine.
Aycock Brown was this photographer that would photograph life here on Hatteras Island, or the Outer Banks specifically, during the 1950s. If you look at some of his work, like, it's not pretty photos of Hatteras Island. It's like how truly Hatteras was in the 1950s. He wasn't coming in and photographing just pretty scenes. He was coming in and truly showing what it was.
There's like so many characters here and just so many aspects of life, and I just feel like I should capture it as much as possible.
My hope when people are looking at my photos of the Outer Banks is that there's some sort of connection for them, whether it's a landscape of a lighthouse or if it's a portrait of a local person. My hope is that there's some sort of relationship or memory they have from that location or a memory from a person that they've met here.
One of my hopes in all the photography work that I do and the stories that I share is that folks will get inspired to go home and maybe look at the natural world around them in a deeper way.
So one of my favorite projects that I've been working on here in Dare County is the Hatteras Fisherman Project. Spent like 8 or 9 years riding out with commercial fishermen, just documenting their work.
I like to come in when there's at least enough light to see something and potentially, of course, to photograph something. So the very first thing I do is roll down both windows. And that way I can hear, I can see, my camera equipment and my body, for that matter, are acclimating to whatever the outside temperature is. And that's what I'm trying to do, is to meld myself into this place and into this atmosphere.
I think it was right before Memorial Day 2017, I learned about the Knights in Rodanthe house. So I crawled in the dunes at 4 o'clock in the morning, hoping no one would get me arrested. And I set my camera up and I took a photo of it. And it was just like, I was hooked. I was like, this is what I want.
Ray Matthews, closest thing I'll ever have to a brother. In my mind and thinking and heart, he was the master photographer here. Over 50 years worth of legacy. And he said that if you want to look for beauty, it's not hard to find here. And it's so true.
When I first started shooting photographs, for me, it was like all about getting like these pretty landscapes and, you know, pretty sunsets. But nowadays, for me, it's more about what this place truly is. And a lot of times it might not seem pretty to other people, but to me, there's some beauty there in those raw.
I literally had family in town, and we were on the beach at night, and I said, you know, I want to try something. If you'll just stand right there for a second. I set up the camera, and then I hit him with a flashlight, and then I let the camera go, and I'm like, I think I can do portraits with the Milky Way. And I've been working on that actual photograph for about 5 years now.
Instead of like just focusing on the beauty here, it's like, what do the peripherals look like? And so trying to spend a lot of time of like, all right, here's a dumpster in a parking lot that has like no fish written on it, and then there's a boogie board inside with a shark on it. It's like semi-ironic. It's like it's not a pretty photo. It's a photo of a dumpster. Like, it doesn't make sense. But to me, it's like, don't go and photograph the obvious.
I can come out here and there might be a mother bear foraging with cubs halfway back in the field, or a collared red wolf. The long lens shows me that. It will show me things that my eye just can't pick up, and show me details, and show me behavior. And I love that.
I really love the winter here. It's super raw, it's windy, it's usually nasty and cold. At the same time, it lends itself to making beautiful images. And it's not the typical image that you see. It's usually pretty miserable, but at the same time, like, you feel alive because you're bundled up, you're out there in the middle of it. There's nobody around, and you can really just enjoy this place for what it is.
This area is called a refuge because it provides critical habitat for wildlife, but honestly, it provides refuge for my heart and my spirit.
There's times where I can only get the Milky Way lined up for a 20-day period in the fall, and if it's cloudy those 20 days, it's gone forever. So I gotta be ready to get that shot when it's lined up with it. And once that shot's gone, it's gone. But boy, when you can catch it, it's absolutely amazing.
Most of the time, photographers talk about capturing images, about shooting wildlife. I prefer to say, I receive. I receive gifts and moments of presence, of wild animals and wild birds, of the land itself, of the light. I'm not capturing anything in the sense that I'm not trying to go out as a predator. I'm trying to come as someone saying, please, thank you.
We live by the wind here, and they say the only time that it's not blowing is when it's changing directions. There's always a nice surprise in the weather, as well as surprises that aren't so good.
I'll tell you one crazy thing that happened. My dad was still alive, and he comes in, he said, "Come back here with me, come back here with me. I got something to show you." And he was all excited, and I'm like, "What is happening?" And he said, "Look how beautiful." I looked, there was 3 water spouts right behind the restaurant. So we all took off and ran in, and Dad's like, "Where are you going? You're never gonna see this again."
The weather around here is one of the most complicated things you'll ever have. Recently, I reached out to a meteorologist, and I said, "Is there any way I can better predict, or is there a better app I should be using?" And he goes, "No. There's no better app. There's no way to predict it. But it's a part of like living here."
The power of weather is amazing. It can knock you to your knees. It can knock you into your seat. It can make you run. And we always cheer for the best days in the world, but we're ready for the worst.
We're in that kind of sweet spot in the mid-latitudes here where we get swells from tropical systems, hurricanes, nor'easters. Hurricanes have more publicity around them, you know, they're named systems. Nor'easters can end up moving slower, and they move a ton of water because they're so large, and that creates a lot of surge and erosion. So they don't get as much publicity, but they can and often do end up doing more damage around here.
There is like this calm before the storm, and then there's this wind switch after the storm that is like no other. I mean, it is the most powerful thing you'll ever experience, and there's an energy behind it. And so for me to experience that for the first time, there's like a sense of like beauty and excitement and also fear, and then there's a sadness.
Hurricane Dorian was our last experience with a major hurricane here. And of course, we knew it was coming. So the Methodist men, of course, tried to get our people organized and ready and so forth. The approaching wind blew all of the water out of the sound and pushed it up on the mainland.
We lived in Kill Devil Hills, and we were about 3 houses up from the sound. The wind came through and just blew all the water out, and it was dry.
I've seen the sound blow all the way out where you could walk across, yep.
And it was kind of strange to look out and see the sound dry. As the eye passed, of course, the wind shifted back around more westerly.
Being young and probably not the smartest thing we did, we decided to walk way out into the water, and then we realized this water is going to come back, and it's going to come back fast. So we got out of there really fast.
And then the water came rushing in.
All the way up to about 2 inches from coming into our house. But right in front of our house, there was capsized boats. There was pieces of docks and piers and all that. But we got out just in time, right before the water came back up. So do not walk out into the sound during a hurricane.
So in September 2020, Hurricane Teddy was off the coast. It was like right at the peak of hurricane season. And that morning I was kind of walking the beach, and I kind of knew like there were a couple of houses that had game rooms underneath and nobody was staying there. So just kind of stepped in, ran inside. I was maybe in there for 5 minutes and just snapped a couple of photos. By that afternoon, I was getting contacted by a bunch of different editors. I think it was hard for people to wrap their heads around like what they were looking at.
I remember going surfing at Avalon Pier. We hit a telephone pole in the water, and we were like, let's get out. This is crazy. Like, we just need to get out.
People here are extremely in tune with the weather. In my opinion, that's a function of the fact that this place relies so heavily on the weather. In a random city or someplace, the weather really doesn't dictate their day-to-day. And here, it absolutely can and does.
Just like my business and anyone else's business, we're all weather-based.
I mean, we've worked with hurricanes right over top of us where I've had the guys literally holding tents down from blowing off the backs of boats. We've had to work and shelter in place on boats during storms.
Typical day for commercial fishermen is rising way before the sun, probably 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning. The next thing is to look at the sky, listen to the forecast, and ascertain what the weather is going to be and how long you're going to be able to maybe work that day.
You ask any of my friends or the people that we know out here, we know what tide it is. We know what the wind's doing. We try to figure out what it's going to do, and then we guess 4 or 5 days out.
My relationship with the tides and the currents is of the utmost respect because I can't drink all that water. It's called the graveyard for the Atlantic for a reason.
Whether it be you're into cycling and the wind is coming out of this direction, it ends up feeling like you're going uphill for miles and miles. Or if you're walking in the woods on a kind of a dreary, foggy day, it just makes it feel really surreal. It's interesting that surfing is kind of the poster child for a directly weather-related sport, but really anything we do here is tied into the weather on a fundamental basis.
We're always ready for that time when we have to activate our emergency operations center and bring the whole team to bear to be ready to overcome a challenge that we never want to see happen. We have North Carolina Highway Patrol, we have North Carolina DOT, we have the Coast Guard. We have about 30 or 40 people sitting in our emergency operations center, not just sitting there, but taking action on the priorities and the objectives that we have to execute to keep our communities safe.
When you're going down a road and a hurricane comes and somebody's having a hard time, your family goes over and helps them to board up their house. If it's an elderly person, you bring them to your house. When nobody else is coming, you have to be the rescuer yourself.
We kind of integrate with Dare County Emergency Management and fulfill one of the important roles of trying to help people save their belongings and help the victims as much as we can. When everyone else leaves, we're here to try to deal with long-term emergencies of all types.
I have learned that we have a resilient community out here. What I worry about is those that don't live here, that may not have that same exposure to the experiences that they've had growing up here. And our visitors need to listen to the locals. We can help you, help yourselves.
Every single day, the view is always changing. The clouds look different. Every sunrise and sunset is completely different. As the winds change throughout the year, those look different. It's always changing.
The sky at night here is special, let me tell you, especially on Hatteras Island where there's very little light pollution. Like seeing the Milky Way, seeing shooting stars, seeing sometimes satellites launched from Cape Canaveral in Florida. These are things you can't really see in the overwhelming majority of the East Coast. It is grounding in a way. We're on this earth in a special location.
To me, the most neatest thing I've ever witnessed, and it was 4 or 5, maybe 6 years ago, was when the Shelly Island phenomena developed off at Cape Hatteras. I kept hearing a few people saying that there was a good wave on it, and then as hurricane season approached and late August got here and nor'easters were starting to blow, it was the most magical experience, seeing a true left point break. And the watercolor, every time I went, it was the color of Scope mouthwash, green tropical Tortola water. 3 times I was there for it, and all 3 times I felt like I just came from something magical happened that day. It was cool.
Living in the moment is something that people need to really take advantage of here because it can change drastically. And when the stars align, that's the moment to take advantage of and really to really fulfill your life.
I went out after the worst of the nor'easter winds had abated a little bit to just document the rolled up ocean and the foam. As I was coming down the stairs onto the beach, I thought there was a piece of blue sea glass on the sand. I thought, oh my gosh, blue, that's amazing. All the bubbles were iridescent. It wasn't glass at all. And it reminded me again, even in the midst of loss, of destruction, there's beauty to be found if we look for it.
There is nothing like being here on the Outer Banks once the storm comes and there's like a break in the storm. It's the prettiest sky you can ever see. Just after the storm, how the seagulls come back, the air is clear, it's crisp, it's a cleansing of whatever was going on. And I enjoy that feeling that the world does not center around us. It's what it means to be from here.
If you came to Manteo and you got to meet Cora May, you're lucky, because the woman was up to date on everything, great fun, and ready to entertain. She was a wonderful person and a light years ahead of herself. She was a Renaissance woman if there ever was one.
Cora May loved Manteo. We never took vacations because we had everything here. For much of Mom's life, she was a single mom. Her first husband had died and left her with 4 children, and her second marriage didn't last. So she had us to raise all alone.
I think Mom's love of the arts was just a gift from God, because she didn't really have heavy training in that. That was not something that was trained here. One of Mother's favorite things in life was that she was in the Lost Colony. The Lost Colony is a story about the first colonists from England that came here in 1584.
Cora May played Agona for 27 years, playing the same role longer than any other actress in American theater.
Agona was a Native American that was here when the colonists came, and she became, and they feel she was a single lady, maybe widowed, or because she was a little older, and she fell in love with old Tom, the drunk, the town drunk that came with him. And that love just, it showed that thing of how blind love is. She just thought he was everything wonderful, and Mom just paid it to the hilt. When she looked and smiled and tilted her head and looked at him with those good blue eyes, you felt, this woman loves this man.
Mom put everything she had in playing the role of Agona. I had seen many Agonas play when I was in it, and Mother was by far the best.
If there ever was someone who worked against type, that was Mother. Mother had 2 husbands, and she was never a fonding person. She was never someone that just fell out over somebody. But she knew how to play it, and she could do it to the hilt, and she changed. It wasn't just a natural thing. She changed to be Agona, and it was wonderful. She changed her walk. She changed everything about herself. It was really a terrific performance. Her one line was tee-hee. She brought the house down with it every single night.
Mom was the happiest person I ever knew. It didn't take much to make her happy. A good story, going to see a good friend.
Mama was a woman's advocate. She really felt that women should be independent. Now, she never left the island much, but she really encouraged it for everyone else. And she maintained well into her 60s friends that were in their 20s, because she was so forward-thinking. She was always up on public events, up on what we needed to do. And when people would say, oh, I don't want them to change that, I don't want them to change this, oh, no, we got to keep it the way it was, Mama was like, no, we've got to move forward. The town started to rename everything after the Lost Colony characters and places like Devon Street, and they wanted to name, and did name, her street right out here, Agona, after the character she played in the Lost Colony. She loved it. And then some years later, when we were revitalizing downtown Manteo, and a bridge had to be built, Mark, her son, who by then was Senate Pro Tem of the state of North Carolina, was helping with the funding for this project. And he said, Mama, we're going to name the bridge after you. And Mom went, oh, no, no, don't name the bridge after me. I'm not important enough. I haven't done enough to have the bridge named after me. She got that bridge named after her, and it was her pride and joy.
When Mom passed away, at her funeral, there was standing room only.
Mama's funeral was remarkable in lots of ways. One of them is an 88-year-old woman that packs a church for a funeral. That doesn't happen much this day. And Mama had some really personal friends that we wanted to put on the right-hand side. Andy Griffith was one. Governor Jim Hunt was another. It was really a wonderful homage to an old woman. And we had it simple like her, like she liked, and her paw was not flowers. She hated cutting flowers. So we had a local florist do what the forest would look like, just at the bottom with the leaves, a couple of flowers, and 7 birds for her babies. And Mark said, let's give her one last run over her bridge. And we went over the bridge and turned around and came back, and we felt like this was the best end. She got one last trip over her bridge.
Yo, what's up? Yeah, Cyrus. What? Oh, Benny! Benny just got. Oh my God!
There's more to the story at rawobx.com.
Do we mark time by what comes before and after? Or is it this moment and what we do with it that truly matters? The Outer Banks of North Carolina starts every day with an open invitation to explore, to pursue unknown outcomes, and challenge curiosities, to stir the soul with open spaces and endless possibilities.
Tide's starting to come in now. What's up, guys? Looks like you found a good spot for us. Yeah! Hey! I see mullet.
There's more to the story at rawobx.com.
I get up 4:30 in the morning, I go out to the shelters. And I help take the soil crabs out. And we're usually through by 6 o'clock. And I go back and go in the boat and go out crabbing. And I pull on the average of between 250 and 300 pots. Then I come back in and I take care of the shedders. Trucks will come in and we have to load them on the truck. And about 7 o'clock I come in. That's it until start 4:30 the next morning.
Soft-shell crab is the crab in its most delicious, weakest form. The shed that they come out of, the old shell, is probably at least an inch smaller than the new shell when they become hard again. So that is a completely soft crab coming out of a totally empty shell. Every portion of the crab comes out, and this is all that is left, just a hollow shell.
And when it comes all the way out, that's what it'll look like after it comes all the way out of the shell.
This is a time when everything that's in the water wants to eat it, and everything out of the water seems to want to eat it because they're really delicious.
This year the water's been kind of cool the whole year. So with the colder water, it takes them longer to ferment to get hardened up a little bit. So it kind of gives us a little bit of a break. Hotter water, you got to check them more often.
Soft-shell crabbing is extremely hard work. You spend a lot of hours up at night. You don't get very much sleep. And what I'm seeing now in our current situation where we are right now, this is the family that's doing that, and if the family is not involved, I don't think you'll make it catching soft-shell crabs, because it's just very difficult to go out and employ someone and say, how about getting up at 12 o'clock tonight and let's check these crabs.
What do I like about it? Well, I just enjoy catching the crabs and watching them shed and selling them. I mean, I enjoy the whole works. I mean, when it comes to that.
We have a basic human need to feel connected to nature, to the idea of something bigger, to one another. The Outer Banks of North Carolina, a chain of barrier islands shaped by wind and water, connected by the elements, just open spaces and endless possibilities.
Some people say the Outer Banks has the best fishing spots. Some people talk too much. The Outer Banks of North Carolina, conveniently located just beyond compare.
Did you know that weed slows reaction time and impairs motor skills and coordination? Weed also disrupts learning and problem-solving skills. Whether you're a basketball player, surfer, skater, or student with other life goals, Outer Banks Hope Coalition reminds you to live life in focus. Don't let weed blur your dreams.
When you come to Nags Head Woods, you are responsible for your litter, whether it's picking up your dog's poop or picking up your trash from your snacks.
You can even get an old grocery bag and pick up trash you see along the trail.
Over the past year, there have been about 60,000 visitors to Nags Head Woods.
Nags Head Woods is one of the largest remaining maritime forests on the East Coast. It is also protected by the Big Sand Dunes of Jackie's Ridge State Park.
These woods have quite a lot of wildlife, such as birds, frogs, turtles, otters, and even foxes.
Look at the snail shells.
Another snail.
There's a bunch of snails
Oh, there's
down
a
there.
snail in here. Oh, look at all those. Look at all the snails in there.
There are a lot of trails here, even some for you if you're not a big hiker, such as the 88.
It is also out of the wind, so you can enjoy the trails on a stormy day.
Nags Head Woods has created so many good memories for us. You can do the same for you. Bye!
In a world of ordinary vacations, live the extraordinary. Book the real Outer Banks.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Chris, a volunteer here at the Wright Brothers National Memorial. We're back with another edition of Did You Know? This one is about why Kitty Hawk? Now why? It's a valid question. Why would two brothers from Dayton, Ohio come down to North Carolina on the Eastern Shore to do their flight tests and eventually their first powered flight? Well, once the brothers had their first glider designed in 1900, they figured they would need at least 16 to 18 miles an hour to get lift. That kind of wind speed cannot be obtained in Dayton, at least not sustained and not very often. Wilbur considered Chicago as a place to conduct gliding tests, but afraid of possible attention from newspapers, dismissed it as being too busy. Even though he didn't like Chicago as a location, he wrote a letter to the U.S. Weather Bureau asking more information on Chicago winds. And in his letter, he also included the request, do you maybe have a publication that shows the different wind velocities in the country? The Weather Bureau wrote back to Wilbur that the information he's looking for is contained in their monthly weather review, and they sent him a copy of it. The publication contained tables of wind velocities recorded at 120 Weather Bureau stations in the United States. The table confirmed Chicago, the windy city, right? The table confirmed Chicago was indeed the windiest city, but having already ruled out Chicago, he looked further down the list. The next 4 locations on the list, not accepted as suitable. They were either too far away, think of the travel in the early 1900s, or they didn't have the soft grounds they were looking for. I suspect at some point they figured they would encounter the ground and soft grounds would be beneficial. Next on the list was a place called Kitty Hawk in North Carolina. Neither brother had ever heard of the place, but a quick look on the map showed that it's on the coast of North Carolina. Keep in mind, there's no such thing as the Outer Banks back in those days. Wilbur wrote a letter to the Weather Bureau station in Kitty Hawk. He wanted to confirm the data that he saw in the publication. Mr. Joseph Dosher, who manned the station in Kitty Hawk, wrote back confirming the wind information and added that they had a mile-wide beach free of trees. Mr. Dosher showed Wilbur's letter to Bill Tate. Now, Mr. Tate was the notary public in the town, was the postmaster, county commissioner. He was like, the everything guy for around these parts. He wrote his own letter back to Wilbur, in which he also referred to a mile-wide beach and a stretch of 5 miles with no obstructions except for sand dunes, maybe an 80-foot sand hill. Confirmed the winds would be around 10 to 20 miles an hour, mostly from the north to south. In addition, and the clincher, and his last sentence of the letter, Mr. Tate's comment was, if you decide to try your machine here, I will take pleasure in doing all I can for your convenience and pleasure, and assure you, you will find a hospitable people when you come among us. On Thursday, September 6, 1900, Wilbur boarded the Big 4 train to Cincinnati, transferred to an overnight C&O train to Old Point Comfort in Hampton, Virginia, where he took the steamer ferry Pennsylvania across the James River to Norfolk. There, he set out to find the 18-foot spruce spars he needed to finish the glider. They were not available in Dayton, and figured that since Norfolk was a shipping town, he could find them there, but unfortunately could not find them. So he settled for 18-foot spars of pine. Then he boarded another train to Elizabeth City. In Elizabeth City, he inquired about a boat to Kitty Hawk, was told he had just missed the weekly boat to Manteo on Roanoke Island by 1 day. It took Wilbur 3 days to find a sailor who both knew where Kitty Hawk was and was willing to take him there. He arranged for the crates carrying the glider to be shipped on the weekly boat, and then he paid Mr. Isaac Perry and his son $3 to take him, his lumber, and his bags to Kitty Hawk. The boat he took was called the Curly Q, most likely a Sharpie schooner. We don't have a picture of the actual Curly Q, but this is a picture that shows you a Sharpie from the same time to give you an idea of what it looked like. Everything was fine as they headed down the Pasquotank River, but no sooner did they reach the Albemarle Sound than a fierce storm came up and battered the Sharpie. Water was coming over the side, and Wilbur, with Mr. Perry's son, were bailing water from the vessel. The foresail blew loose and was soon followed by the mainsail. Using only the jib, Mr. Perry turned the boat around and found refuge in the channel on the North River. What they did not know, or could not know at the time, was that they had caught the tail end of a hurricane. They spent the night there, and the following morning got to work repairing the boat. By mid-afternoon, they were underway again and reached Kitty Hawk in the evening. The red line on this map shows the first leg of the trip where they waited out the storm. And then the black line shows you the next day in the morning, the second part of the journey to Kitty Hawk. Wilbur spent another night on the boat, and he went ashore in the morning looking for Mr. Tate. This map shows you where Wilbur first stepped foot in Kitty Hawk, and you can see Mr. Tate's house is not that far from where he stepped foot on shore. The only person he saw when he stepped ashore was a 14-year-old boy named Elijah Baum. He agreed to take Wilbur to Mr. Tate's house. Wilbur had not written the Tates to confirm he was coming. So Bill Tate was a little surprised when the gentleman knocked on his door, introduced himself as a person from Dayton he had communicated with. Bill Tate invited him in and introduced him to his wife, Addie. When Addie found out her guest had not eaten in almost 48 hours, she prepared him a big plate of ham and eggs. Wilbur promptly devoured the meal. Wilbur asked them if he could possibly board with them until Orville and the tent arrived in a few days. The tents were impressed with this gentleman of breeding, as they recalled. They only had 2 bedrooms and moved their 2 young daughters into their bedroom to accommodate Wilbur. How nice was that? While they waited for Orville, Bill Tate took Wilbur on the tour of the area. The people of Kitty Hawk were curious as to the visitor. Not many gentlemen outsiders actually came to Kitty Hawk. What was Kitty Hawk like back then? About 60 families called Kitty Hawk home. Orville described a couple 2-story homes, a store, several single-story houses, none of which were painted. The place was mostly isolated. Elizabeth City, which is 40 miles away and reachable only by boat, was what the Kitty Hawk residents called the town. It was the place to buy consumer goods, and with its railroad, connected it to the rest of the world. The landscape was sandy, covered with a growth of pine, dogwood, holly, oak, and cypress. Sand dunes moved along as the wind blew. There were more hogs than people, and a few cattle, horses, and sheep. Orville wrote to his sister in a letter to Sister Catherine, quote, "You never saw such pitiful-looking creatures as the horses, hogs, and cows down here. By contrast, the only things that thrive and grow fat are bed bugs, mosquitoes, and wood ticks." Imagine, if you would, 2 gentleman brothers from Ohio who had never traveled further than a bicycle ride outside Dayton, finding themselves now 750 miles from home in such a desolate place. They had never seen an ocean, much less traveled by boat during a hurricane. Was it an adventure, really, or did they think, my goodness, what have we done? No matter the weather, the brothers dressed every day like businessmen. Suits with ties, starch collars. The locals didn't know quite what to make of them. Always neatly dressed, but living in a tent and working on a big kite. A short while after putting up their camp near the Tate's house, they discovered the hills at Kill Devil Hills, 4 miles further south, and they moved their camp there. This is their first camp near the Tates. You could see Wilbur's washing the pots, and the spars that he bought in Norfolk are leaning against the tent. This picture is taken from the hill. What you see there are the puddles after a couple days of a good rain. It's taken in 1902. Also in 1902, this is Orville after he finished the turn. You can see he's heading back now towards the hill. They built this structure in 1901 to work on their glider, and they slept in a tent. They expanded it in 1902 to include living and sleeping areas. In this picture, you could see, looking left to right, was Octave Chanute, Orville, Huffaker, and Wilbur. And lastly, here's a view of the Kill Devil Hills in 1900. And today looks quite a bit different, doesn't it? If you've not been here, I hope you come and visit us. You can hear the entire story of the first flight here in Kitty Hawk. And that is the story of why they came to Kitty Hawk.
Better sleep means a better life. That's why Outer Banks Furniture offers Simply Luxe from Mattress Grove. Luxurious handcrafted sleeping comfort that's made in America. Simply Luxe gives you pressure-relieving layers, temperature-regulating airflow, spinal-aligning back support with 5 unique support feels for ultimate comfort. Start sleeping better today. Simply Luxe goes the extra mile to hand-tuft many of its models for unparalleled support and durability. Find the complete collection of Simply Luxe mattresses at Outer Banks Furniture, Milepost 1 in Kitty Hawk.
Around the corner from the Albemarle Sound, Edenton Bay provides a scenic backdrop to its namesake town. Once a port for North Carolina's first colonial capital, today the waters attract travelers looking for calm, not commerce. And Edenton welcomes boaters with free boat slips for 2 nights. Whether by sea or land, let our historic lighthouse guide you to a relaxing bay that's a world away. Find your Eden in Edenton, the South's prettiest small town.
Despite what you've heard, 911 cannot locate you immediately when calling from a cell phone. Do you know the street address of your location in the event of an emergency? When you call 911, we don't either, unless you can tell us.
Out of the darkness, it still stands, guiding mariners on their way, a beacon of light for all to see. Find your light at visitcurrituck.com.
Albemarle Queen, and we went down the Roanoke River and just had a great time listening to some nice jazz music. And
to meet a lot of nice people, and it was really smooth on the Roanoke, really nice, and you get a view of the town and of the area that you don't usually get to see.
There was jazz, there was birds, there was water. What else do you want?
It was great. Yeah, great view.
Yeah, we saw an osprey, blue heron.
I think it was fun.
Yeah, I loved it. Great experience.
Very relaxing to sit and like listen to live music while after a long day of like walking up and down the street like 100 times.
Really good time. It was and it was so peaceful. The boat ride was very smooth. Very smooth. And we waved at all the other boats as they went up and down the river, and the Marine Patrol from the other boats didn't even rock the boat because this boat was so big and so heavy. So it was a really smooth ride. Yeah. We saw deer, saw probably about 100 turtles. Yeah. Some of them were big. One was this big. One of the biggest turtles I've seen on the river.
We saw some fish jump out the water. We saw lots of the helicopters go by from the helicopter station.
Yeah, from the helicopter rides.
Recommend it to other folks?
Oh, yeah, it was so good. We felt really blessed to get to go on it, really.
PlayOBXGolf.com is your gateway to a great golf vacation on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Stretched between the Sound and the Atlantic Ocean, the Outer Banks offers a one-of-a-kind coastal golf experience. 5 award-winning courses and well-appointed golf accommodations in a picturesque setting make the Outer Banks the perfect choice for your next golf getaway. And fall is the perfect time to experience the best weather and the best course conditions of the year. Your golf trip to North Carolina's Outer Banks is just a click away at PlayOBXGolf.com.
Better sleep means a better life. That's why Outer Banks Furniture offers Simply Luxe from Mattress Grove. Luxurious handcrafted sleeping comfort that's made in America. Simply Luxe gives you pressure-relieving layers, temperature-regulating airflow, spinal-aligning back support with 5 unique support feels for ultimate comfort. Start sleeping better today. Simply Luxe goes the extra mile to hand-tuft many of its models for unparalleled support and durability. Find the complete collection of Simply Luxe mattresses at Outer Banks Furniture, Milepost 1 in Kitty Hawk.
Around the corner from the Albemarle Sound, Edenton Bay provides a scenic backdrop to its namesake town. Once a port for North Carolina's first colonial capital, today the waters attract travelers looking for calm, not commerce. And Edenton welcomes boaters with free boat slips for 2 nights. Whether by sea or land, let our historic lighthouse guide you to a relaxing bay that's a world away. Find your Eden in Edenton, the South's prettiest small town.
My name is Luis Garcia, and I'm the lighthouse keeper, the Currituck Beach Lighthouse. I'm the number 27 lighthouse keeper. In 1875, December 1st, already was a keeper with 2 helpers working in the lighthouse. The maintenance and the tower is the same, but the difference is more like the lighthouse keeper had to be there no matter what. The lighthouse keeper before, he used to work in the storm. Because he had to be there. And the lighthouse keeper now, if it's a storm, we just keep it safe. That's the difference.
The lens inside our tower is a first order Fresnel lens. It is the original lens that was placed inside the tower in 1875. The source of light here for decades was oil, originally lard oil, believe it or not. So we moved to kerosene in the 1880s, and we stay with kerosene, although with different lamps, until 1933. In 1933, we're electrified and get a light bulb. And again, through different power sources, now we're on the grid. We have one 1,000 watt bulb in there that works at any time. We actually have 2 bulbs, but only one is powered at any time, and it's directly in the middle and level. So 1,000 watts doesn't feel like a very bright bulb, but once you surround it with prisms, and the Fresnel lens is genius because it's just slices of a lens, so you're not filling the top of your lighthouse with an incredibly dense and heavy lens. It is still very heavy, but it's not taking up all of that space. That's the genius of it, is it just slices of a lens lined up in such a way that you can send light in a straight line for distance. In our case, 18 nautical miles, this light shines at least 260 degrees. So that's about 21 land miles. So a lighthouse has to work 24 hours a day. The Fresnel lens we have at the top keeps it working at night as long as there's a light source inside it. And in the daytime, a light source at the top of your lighthouse is not helpful. You need something else that the eye can see from afar. And that's why that our lighthouse is unpainted is important, because that's its day marker. Other lighthouses have a paint job, right? Black and white. All our North Carolina tall brick mortar lighthouses have black and white paint, except for this one. And in fact, if you had a light list, you would have had a light list out at sea. And you would have said, okay, in the daytime, I see a tall red brick lighthouse. I know where I am. And I know there are shoals there. And even though I'm trying to go south and stay out of the Gulf Stream, the most powerful current of water on the planet, I better not get too close to shore or I'm going to hit all those shoals. And I know that because my light list says this is where I am based on either the day marker or the flash of the flash pattern at night.
Every place has a story. Stories of romance, drama, adventure, stories of life. Find your story at visitcurrituck.com. This isn't the everyday. This is an escape. An escape to somewhere wild. This is where roads end and adventures begin. Here, you put down the heaviness of life and dream, play, reflect, and spend time with the ones that matter most. Around every corner is a retreat where you can taste everything, fresh and local. This water paradise has preserved its past, and Southern charm lives on. Here, you can discover something rare, something unique, extraordinary, and wild. Find yourself again at visitcurrituck.com.
Surrounded by water, Currituck and the people of the Outer Banks have been shaped and defined by its rich coastal and maritime history. Here in Kerala, on the edge of the Atlantic, where roads give way to endless water, legendary local craftsmen designed and built these boats and taught generations of Northeast North Carolinians how to take to the sea and sound to find prosperity. From duck hunting, to fishing, to guiding, to saving lives off the coast, these hardy people both endured and celebrated life on the water. The Currituck Maritime Museum tells the stories of Currituck's boat-building forefathers, their remarkable craft, and the enduring legacy they left behind on how to live life and thrive on the waters here. Discover the newest addition to historic Kerala Park. Find yourself here. Visit CurrituckMaritimeMuseum.com.
The most famous rescue out of this station was in 1918. And about 5 miles offshore, the Merlo, which was a British tanker carrying a load of kerosene, was torpedoed by a German U-boat. The Merlo, because of her cargo, exploded and sunk very rapidly. Of course, the watchman on duty here at Chickamaucomico saw the explosion and mustered a crew. They launched the surf boat and finally got through the breakers after 3 attempts. On that 4th attempt, Captain John Allen and the crew managed to get the surf boat through the breakers and motored out toward the Merlo. By the time they got out there, the sea was on fire because the cargo of the Merlo had leaked out and was on fire on the surface of the sea. The boat, the 1046, is actually a motor surf boat, but once they got so close to the wreck, their fuel evaporated out of the fuel tanks, so they had to complete the rescue using their oars. And of the 51 sailors on board, 42 were rescued here at Chickamaucomico. The King of England awarded Captain John Allen with the Loving Cup, the crew of Chickamaucomico. They all received the Gold Life-Saving Medal for that rescue. It still remains today one of the most decorated maritime rescues in American history.
Do we mark time by what comes before and after? Or is it this moment and what we do with it that truly matters? The Outer Banks of North Carolina starts every day with an open invitation to explore, to pursue unknown outcomes, and challenge curiosities, to stir the soul with open spaces and endless possibilities.
Some people say the Outer Banks has the best fishing spots. Some people talk too much. The Outer Banks of North Carolina, conveniently located just beyond compare.
Just across the Wright Memorial Bridge, you'll find one-of-a-kind experiences await you. Don't let memories you'll treasure pass you by on the road to the Outer Banks. Take a day and find yourself on the Currituck mainland.
This is Grace. Grace is bored. Fortunately, the town of Kitty Hawk has a new brochure. You can learn about flying and stuff. Shoot some hoops. Check out some birds. No need to stress about getting lost. There's a map. There's parks. Catch a fish. It even talks about the beach. This brochure has everything you need to know about the town of Kitty Hawk. Download the brochure at kittyhawknc.gov.
Treasure memories in Corolla Outer Banks. Go to CorollaNC.com.
Whether you're here for a week or one long weekend, explore nature surrounded by the ocean and beside the ones you love. Welcome to the Currituck Outer Banks.
Connected to mainland North Carolina, yet seemingly a world away, Edenton is known as the prettiest small town in the South. Time passes slowly in the state's first colonial capital. The lure of historic sites, outdoor adventure, and friendly people draws visitors from near and far, whether by car or boat. Let our lighthouse be your beacon to a relaxing getaway on the Albemarle Sound. Find your Eden in Edenton, North Carolina, the South's prettiest small town.
We have a basic human need to feel connected to nature, to the idea of something bigger, to one another. The Outer Banks of North Carolina, a chain of barrier islands shaped by wind and water, connected by the elements, just open spaces and endless possibilities.
Hi, my name's Emily Lewis.
I'm an invertebrate biologist here at the North Carolina Aquarium on Roanoke Island, and I take care of our jellyfish collection. So we have several species of jellyfish. Most of them are local and found around North Carolina waters. We do have some species that are found in different parts of the world though, such as our spotted lagoon jellies. Those are found off the east coast of Japan. We have something called moon jellies. They're commonly seen around here. They're clear and they have sort of a 4-leaf clover shape in the center of their bell or body. And those are actually 4 different stomach pouches. We also have something here called nettles, typically Atlantic nettles, and those are the ones that you're gonna run into at the beach that are gonna have those really long tentacles and can sometimes sting you. They use their tentacles for basically hunting and grabbing onto their prey. They have 2 different kinds of tentacles. Those tentacles range from being mildly stinging and kind of sticky to just sort of run into food and obtain it that way, versus very powerful stinging tentacles that can grab onto larger prey items like small fish. At the aquarium, we can't give them the full variety of what they would be eating in the wild, and so we do a couple of different food items. The first is we raise something called brine shrimp, and we hatch it out from its egg form, we call it cysts, and we hatch it out overnight, and those 1-day-old brine shrimp, we can actually feed whatever vitamins or nutritious algae we want. And in that way, we can sort of pass on whatever nutrition we need to get into the jellies. Jellyfish are kind of free-floating, and they're technically considered to be something called plankton, so they don't have a lot of control over where they are in their environment. They kind of just get swept with the tides. And so for keeping jellyfish in an aquarium setting, we actually have to make specially designed tanks where we actually recreate what would be the tide or the current. And we have several different kinds of tanks depending on the species of jellyfish. One of the most common is something called a chrysal, but it's basically just a long rectangular tank that's very narrow with the corners cut out at the bottom, and that allows us to move the jellyfish around in a circle without damaging them. The moon jellies are in a cylindrical shaped tank, and that tank basically works by providing flow at the bottom, and we sort of have to balance the water just perfectly, and when we do that, we can kind of get the jellyfish to float up in the main water column of that cylinder. They have a few roles in the ecosystem, but they're definitely food items for a lot of different animals. For instance, sea turtles consume them, a lot of larval fish consume them. There's a few different kind of animals that eat jellyfish. They also sort of play an important role as far as mitigating various other species in the wild. They sort of arrive in large blooms and they keep other animals' populations under control. We actually have highly purified water that we use here, and we make all of our own salt water by hand. Basically, jellyfish, their bodies are mostly made out of water, and so any changes that we might create in the quality of their water is going to have a big impact on them. Things like changes in temperature or salinity that might not be that big of a deal to, let's say, a fish is going to be a real big deal to a jellyfish because their bodies are almost all water. Come learn more about jellyfish here at the North Carolina Aquarium on Roanoke Island. Thanks so much for watching.
Welcome to Jeanette's Pier, the family fishing spot on the Outer Banks. Make memories for a lifetime while reeling in the catch of the day. From bottom fishing for spot and croaker to jigging for bluefish and Spanish mackerel, experience the thrill of catching a fish from this 1,000-foot-long concrete ocean fishing pier located at milepost 16.5 in Nags Head. Have fun in the sun while fishing with your friends and family. Surf, sun, fish, and fun. Experience it all at Jeanette's Pier, where fishing is catching.
The Wright Brothers National Memorial is an icon of the Outer Banks, known the world over as the location where Wilbur and Orville Wright proved that powered flight was possible. The National Memorial tells of the final chapter in the Wright brothers' experiments in flight. But on Moorshore Road in Kitty Hawk, there is another monument to Wilbur and Orville Wright's time on the Outer Banks. It is not as well known, for the Moorshore Road Memorial marker tells the beginning of the tale. On this spot, September 17, 1900, Wilbur Wright began the assembly of the Wright brothers' first experimental glider, which led to man's conquest of the air, erected by the citizens of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, 1928. The original marker was relocated to the Kitty Hawk Town Hall in 1989 due to fire and weather damage, and a duplicate was put back in its exact place. The Wright Brothers National Memorial was an historic undertaking, marking the 25th anniversary of one of the extraordinary achievements in human history. The Moorshore Road marker is a tribute to the citizens of Kitty Hawk and their determination to tell the world of their town's contribution. In 1985, Elijah Tate, the son of Bill and Addie Tate, the couple that hosted the Wright brothers when they arrived on the Outer Banks, told the story of the smaller monument to the Kitty Hawk Town Council.
My father was connected with the Wrights, and they lived in our house. They came to our house, and they never lived anywhere else except our house during that first year that they were here. That inscription that was put on there was corrected by the Wrights. Dad sent that to the Wrights in Dayton, and they changed one word and sent it back to him as okay. It was paid for by the people of Kitty Hawk. Now, some, they paid $5 and some 25 cents, but those were hard times. 25 cents was very good then. So it was all paid for and dedicated, and my nephew unveiled it, and that was Elmer Woodward Jr.
Kitty Hawk of 1900 was nothing like the thriving town it is today. Approximately 300 residents were scattered around Kitty Hawk Bay. The only people living on the ocean side were at the Kitty Hawk Life Saving Station and John Dosher of the U.S. Weather Station. They were the only residents with regular employment. Everyone else earned what little they could from fishing, hunting, and farming. The legacy of the Wright brothers can be seen all over Kitty Hawk, from the site on Moorshore Road, where they assembled the first gliders, the Kitty Hawk Life Saving Station, where they first telegraphed the news, streets and trails dedicated to their honor, and the monument to a century of flight. Kitty Hawk is proud to share in the global significance of the work of the Wright brothers.